in defense of the statement you're making, I think that we and I can sometimes be jaded by the fact that it's like, look, you live in this amazing society and social environment that
We take for
you
granted.
yeah, you can easily take for granted because it's so good. And when you're in
Exactly.
another situation or place, it can be difficult. I mean, one of the things Bill is fond of saying is he's like when he went to Malaysia and talked to one of his cousins who was from India, he said, if the bus is late in America, you still believe the bus is going to show up. He's like, in India, if the bus is late, you might not even get a bus today. Like, it's just you never really know.
Right.
And I think that there is something there. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is I really think there has to be a middle path.
Yeah,
There's
but
got
see,
to
but
be something
let me just say one
that
more thing, and then I won't interrupt you again. But to me,
sure.
I think we're only having this conversation, or I should say, you're only making the point you're about to make, whatever it is. You're only making that point because of these extraordinary circumstances we're in which, you're having to deal with this issue that you just described about whether you pay rent or not. And I would argue that this is a kind of thing that we may never see again in your lifetime. In fact, I would almost predict that we won't see it again in your lifetime. So to try to reshape public policy or societal policy for such an extraordinary event that, I think when it's all said and done, and don't even react to this, but I'm just making the point just to make it, which is when it's all said and done, I'm going to think most of us are going to look back and say we never should have done that at all. And so even more reason not to reshape policy because it wasn't even legit in the first place. And even if it was legit, I would still argue this is a once in a lifetime and we shouldn't be changing policy to deal with something that's so extraordinary.
I think it's reasonable to say we shouldn't be building policy around shooting stars. Like
Right.
these things happen so rarely that, like, I mean, literally it was 100 years. I mean, you could say the Hong Kong flu, I guess, was the last kind of, one that actually affected the United States. But it's been over 100 years since the pandemic affected our way of life. And that's what's happening here. So I think that there's some truth to that, but the opposite side of that is I think that what's more likely potentially to consider is that the period of growth and stability the United States had from 1945 until this year, that's the anomaly. That it's more likely in the history of human affairs that things will be in crisis, there will be problems, there will be all kinds of issues, and strong communities working together can overcome those problems.